Right, so continuing on from last week's episode where I dove into how we are structuring Hugh's breakfasts at the buffets while he's on work trips so he can stay on track and be consistent. This week, Lelum, who's been a client of mine for only 4 to 6 weeks, let's say, and he's really started to build some momentum. But he has a situation that's arose that's involved travel, and we're going to go into a little bit of it because I think this subject for men that travel who want to get in shape, build a body they're proud of, is super important. All right, so I feel like it's a really good example to use to kind of explain what I would do in this situation and what I'm currently getting clients to do to make sure they continue on the journey and progressing forward to their physique goals. All right. So this session, this podcast, this YouTube video, wherever you're watching or listening to this, is all about training. Okay, training. We're not focusing on nutrition today. This is all about how to maintain your training routine and get the most out of it when you're on a work trip, you've got no gym access, right? So I'll go into Leland's situation a little bit. Yeah. So, as I said, 4 weeks into the program, he's committed to the gym. We've been focusing on compound movements, time efficient sessions, building form, technique, and we're just starting to push the weight up. Okay. It's been sending lots of video feedback, video like form videos to me to make sure we're perfecting the technique. And really, as I said, this is where we've started to build a bit momentum in terms of showing up to the gym, getting those 3 sessions done a week, making sure that we are working hard, recovering properly, and ultimately building some confidence in the gym. Okay. And as I said, been starting to increase the weights as he has started to become more confident. And this is what we do with anyone who joins the program. All right. However, what Lelum has happened to Lelum recently is he's had pretty consistent start to the program in terms of being at home with gym access, a bit more control over his food with a couple of 2 or 3 day trips. However, he was told that he'll be going on a last minute work trip, right? A full week away. I can't actually remember the destination now, but he's based in Adelaide. This is somewhere else, right? Pretty rural as well because of the industry he works in. And so, where he's going, he's not going to have access to a gym for 5 or 6 days. All right. So, what could have happened and what happened to Leland before he joined the program was that his kind of training routine, when he went somewhere with limited access or no access to the gym, would start to drop off. It would start to drop off, and he would lose the momentum he's built. So routine would start to drop off, and like the consistency and momentum goes. And ultimately, when we then come back, it's harder to get going again, right? It's harder to get going. And we know that if we want to build a physique we're proud of, we need to be consistent because we spend 3 or 4 weeks in the gym, then we head away, we don't do a lot, we come back. Like we're always taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. All right. And we're not going to get there as quickly, as efficiently, as successfully as we want to. All right. And this used to happen to Leland, and it used to happen to a lot of the guys before they joined the team. And it's very, very common for men that travel with work because your schedules are busy. You don't have access to the same facilities. So what's the point if I can't do the same thing? It almost becomes, dare I say it, a bit of an excuse. All right. Or it's harder to do. So that's kind of used as a reason not to do it. Yeah. We can't build the same habits, continue the same habits. So we give up, right? And we get back on it when we get back. And 1 week of like doing nothing, stopping that routine, it will just reinforce the habit because ultimately, when we're trying to get in shape, build a physique, get healthy, we're trying to reinforce some new habits, some new positive habits, right? And so it just reinforces a negative habit of stopping whenever. life gets inconvenient, right? Whenever we find ourselves not in the ideal situation. And so this is really what we want to avoid. We want to build the habit. We want to do something long enough. We want to continue to show up, get our 3 sessions a week done for long enough for this to become normal for us, for this just to become something we do. It becomes automatic, it's easy. Um, and that's where we're trying to get to. Yeah. So we'll reinforce that negative habit of the fact that we can be inconsistent. Yeah. So I'm going to go into what we've done instead, how we've kept them on track, how we've adjusted things to make sure we stay on track. So we have to ask ourselves, can we replicate the exact gym session in a situation and environment where we don't have access to the same facilities? Can we give the muscle a reason to continue to adapt, continue to progress and challenge that muscle? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. Yeah. So how do we do that? Because we absolutely can do it. We just need to do it in a slightly a different way. We just need to adapt. All right. And that requires extra thought and that requires some discipline. And quite often that isn't seen as worth it, right? Because we're not really sure how to do it. So the muscles ultimately don't know the difference, do they, between um, whether you're in a gym, whether you're doing body weight stuff, whether you're doing kind of calisthenics, whether you're doing using bands or dumbbells or machines, it doesn't know. All it knows is the tension that they're under, the effort you're putting in, and the progressions you're seeing, the increased intensity, the increased weight, the extra reps, these kind of things, right? And the common mistakes when it comes to, right, we're going to be in a situation where we don't have the same facilities, is it kind of just the idea of doing body weight, the idea of using bands, it seems like it's too easy for it to actually make a difference, right? And that's ultimately because we're not doing it correctly or we're not adapting in the right way. Because a lot of the guys will just go through the motions with a body weight workout, with a band workout, and it doesn't stimulate the muscles as much, which is, you know, not going to help us progress in the way we want. Yeah. There's random hotel workouts. We're jumping around, doing hit. All of a sudden, we decide that instead of my gym based, weight and resistance based training session where I'm pushing the muscles close to failure, just because I'm in a hotel away from home, on a work trip, I don't have the same facilities. I've got to do 100 body weight squats and just go through the motions and a couple of bicep curls with a band that doesn't get anywhere near to failure. Or I jump around and do some high intensity circuit thing, or that is just making us tired and increasing fatigue, something that we definitely don't want to get out of control when we are on a work trip, right? When we're in a difficult, stressful, busy, tiring situation. And they're and another common mistake is treating the travel training as kind of better than nothing. Yeah. We want to we want to treat this training that we're going to do as a replacement as better than what the alternative is. All right. We want to do it with the right intent. And the goal of the training doesn't change. Ultimately, we are trying to push the muscles close to failure, or if not to failure, but we just have to do it in a slightly different way. All right. So the changes, examples of changes you can make. All right. Dumbbell or barbell bench press, standard movements. We can do a banded chest press. We can do push-ups with additional resistance from a set of bands. We can do feet elevated push-ups, decline push-ups, these kind of things to make it harder. We can make it harder using a thicker band, a slower eccentric, a pause at the stretch point, right? The peak point of contraction, a longer range of motion. We can go further through the range of motion and we can get closer to failure. As an example, for a lat pull down, we can do a banded row. We can do a single arm banded row, anchor the band in the door. Like, again, we can make this harder. progress it by stepping further away, sitting further away, slowing down the reps, pauses at peak contraction, doing it unilaterally. So we're using working one arm whilst the other one is in a pause position under tension, and alternate. There are lots of movements here, and every movement you do in the gym will have an alternative that you can do body weight, banded. It just might not be staring you in the face. Okay. And with every movement we can do, we can make it more challenging. Sometimes you just need to think outside of the box, right? And it's very easy to assume because we've got a band that we can just, we just have to accept that we use the band as it is. And, it's not going to be too difficult, but I just got to do it because doing something is better than nothing, right? Or doing something when we can do something that is a lot more stimulating is definitely preferred, right? To do it more properly. So what I'm getting at with this call, all right, is that the key to using bands properly is this, right? We should be aiming to still train close to or to failure. We should be bringing the intensity that we show in the gym. All right. And if you could take it easy, and if you take it easy because of the situation, then you just don't get the most out of it. Right. And I bet you if you look back to the last time you did a body weight workout, you used some bands and ask yourself, could you have done more? Could you have given more? Worked harder? The answer is probably yes. Right. So, first of all, first key point when it comes to using bands is we adapt how we're using the bands, we adapt the movement, how we're performing the movement, so that we can still train close to failure. Yeah. And again, every movement, there are different ways to do this. But as an example, I feel like I'm a fairly well-trained guy. I'm fairly strong, nothing silly or crazy, but I've been training for a few years and so fairly strong. I know I could put together a workout, full body workout, and I could take every muscle to failure with just some bands and body weight movements. And so if I feel like if I can, the majority of people can, unless you're an elite, power lifter or something that you might struggle a little bit more, right? Second key point um, is we have to remember the hypertrophy rep ranges. The studies show that you can build hypertrophy, it's essentially building muscle size and inevitably strength. Working with reps anywhere between 5 reps and 30 reps. Okay. If I was to do a set of push ups, if I was to do them quickly, if I was to just get as many as I can in one go, I could probably do 30, right? But if I slow it down and I try and make it harder, I make sure my form is perfect. I do a pause. I introduce a band. I put anything in the room, in the hotel room, whatever it is, my bag, a little suitcase on my back to add some weight. Like I could make it so I'm failing soon after 5 reps. Okay. So if anyone less trained than I am could absolutely be going to failure within this rep range because muscle growth will happen within 5 to 30 reps if we are pushing close to or to failure. All right. The effort just has to be high. And we cannot, and I will continue to reiterate this, we cannot just go through the motions. The goal is to replicate the effort and reps from when you're in the gym. Okay. This is what I really want you to understand. If you take one thing away from this podcast, YouTube, wherever you're listening to it, we are aiming to replicate the effort and the reps for each set that we do in the gym. All right, we're adjusting the movement slightly, or we're adjusting the type of movement we're doing ever so slightly, but we're looking to replicate the effort and the reps. Okay, so we want to add layers of difficulty so that it aligns with our gym-based rep ranges. Because then it keeps it as simple as possible. We can slip back into our routine when we're back home. And we're not necessarily going to be able to do this perfectly with every movement, but absolutely majority we can. All right. So, for example, as I said, we can make it difficult, more difficult with push ups, as an example, by lifting and elevating our feet. We can slow the reps down. We can, pop in some short pauses at the peak contraction point, at the lowest point, just off the floor. We can pop in a pause like halfway through the eccentric or concentric movement of the press up. We can add in bands of appropriate thicknesses. We can add weight to your back. With all these movements, we can increase the levels of difficulty. And if you go into a work trip knowing that you're not going to have access to a gym where we ultimately just want to focus on trying to make it as hard as we can to get the rep ranges in the same place as when we are at home in the gym doing our normal routine, we aim for the same program. It gives us direction, it gives us clarity, and it helps us understand exactly what we need to do. Because if we're going into this work trip just with a couple of bands in our hand or in our bag, thinking, I need to do something, we'll end up doing loads of reps of something that isn't that stimulating, and we're not going to get anything of it from it. And we're not going to continue to maximize muscle growth week after week. As an example, if you are doing a set of banded lat pull downs and it is, you're doing 20, you've got to 20 reps and you're not that tired and you're kind of just going through the motions. And a big key one is when you are at the stretched point. So, for example, a lat pull down, when your hands are above your head and your arms are straight, if the resistance has completely gone from the band, then we need to make a change. Okay. We want the band to be under tension all the time. It must be under tension all the time because then the muscles are engaged all the time. Okay. So that's an important part. So if you're sat too close, when the band goes a bit slack, it means there's no tension on the band. It means the muscles have disengaged. Okay. So sit further away. If you need to sit even further away, that means the angle of the band changes. Then we just change our torso angle ever so slightly. Okay. But we're not trying to be absolutely perfect. We're just trying to work hard and stimulate and replicate the effort we put in the gym. We can adjust our hand positioning on the actual band. You're tying the band to in the door or to a bed frame or something. That anchor point stays the same. We adjust our positioning of our hands closer to the anchor point. We increase the tension on the band and we make it harder for ourselves. We can use a thicker band. You can get a set of 5 resistance bands, 5 different thicknesses and resistances from Amazon for like $45. It is an absolute bargain to maintain the routine, to continue to stimulate the muscles. It's like a gym away from home. You can take in your bag. It's as if you had a Mary Poppins bag and you just popped a load of dumbbells and machines in there. It's awesome. It's game changing. Again, pausing at the peak contraction, adding tempo so we can do a 3-second concentric phase of the movement and a 3-second eccentric phase, essentially when the muscles are elongating under tension and shortening under tension. Because a decreased tempo, slowing down the movement, creates more difficulty. And Lelum's actually on this trip right now, at the time of recording, and the goals for him for this week that we have set out are: we have to be realistic about this first. We have to set realistic expectations that the movements are going to look different. It might take a bit of getting used to. If we don't get things spot on our first work trip, then that's fine, but we're learning and we will learn to optimize these resistance band movements for future work trips in which we don't have access to a gym. We're not trying to hit personal bests because ultimately things look different. And so you cannot really compare to those gym movements. We are just trying to match the effort, the perceived kind of effort that we feel, fatigue that we feel at the end of the session. And the goal is simple. We're trying to maintain the momentum of showing up to the gym 3 times a week. If you want long-term body changes, physique changes, long-term muscle growth at all, you have to commit to this long term. And maintaining our momentum within the gym is key. If you continually take weeks off, it slows things right down. Okay. We have to maintain that stimulus, that muscle protein synthesis, which is when the muscle is getting stimulated, muscle protein synthesis goes up and then it slowly comes down over the course of a few days. We want to keep muscle protein synthesis high by training any given muscle group every 3 days or so on average. Yeah, we have to give it enough time to recover, but we have to stimulate it regularly enough. Yeah, we have to protect the habit as well. The habit, this is almost the most important thing. We have to, over the course of this journey, so that we continue to progress, we continue to get better, we maintain our results for life, we are building sustainable habits. And if we go away, we have to get to the point, or we want to get to the point, we're aiming to get to the point where things become automatic. Yeah. And we want to come home without feeling like we've gone backwards, like we're still in the rhythm, in the swing of things. And this will be a psychological win. You know, Lelum will come back now. I know full well he's done 2 of the 3 sessions already. He sent me through videos. We've tweaked the technique, and you want to come back feeling like you're ready to continue things as you left off. That's ultimately the goal, all right? And it will differentiate the serious men from those that don't actually want it as much as they say they want it. If you're willing to show up, do things a little bit differently, but put just as much effort into it, they're the men that will succeed. They're the men that are going to see the long-term change and the changes that you've wanted for a long, long time. Yeah. And in Leland's case, up until this point, he's absolutely showing that he will be one of those men. And the real lesson for Leland is, look, and for any of you listening to this, any of the guys in the program, work trips happen, right? It's just the reality, and things can come up last minute. We won't feel as prepared, but you can always chuck a few bands in your bag and take any travel and work trip that you're doing. And all we do is we adapt and we push on and we continue to commit to the process as much as we possibly can. Yeah. Those that adapt quicker will see the results quicker. You have to be willing to adapt as well. And momentum is key to maintain. Something that I say to all the guys when they come on board is that ultimately we are trying to continue momentum over time instead of it getting disrupted by constant work travel so that we can see and build long-term change. And you have to remember, as I said earlier, your muscles do not care how you stimulate them. All they care about is tension, effort, and the way they get progressed over time. And that's when they'll grow. And that should be the recurring theme throughout your journey to building the physique that you want. All right. If you found this helpful, make sure to like this video, like the podcast, drop me a comment, send me a message over on Instagram. And if you want some assistance, if you've heard this, it sounds good, you're ready to put this into practice, but you don't really know where to start, then drop me a message over on Instagram and at Jacob Connock Coach, and we can have a conversation about how we can make this this lifestyle that you live, this tough lifestyle, we can manage it properly and see the results and build that physique that you want regardless of if you have inconsistent access to a gym. So I appreciate you listening, appreciate your time. Hope you found this valuable, and I'll see you on the next one.